shit.
Welcome back to the Mantry podcast. I am your host, Reggie Milligan. This podcast is all about helping you cook better. And in today's episode, it's actually about helping you eat better. I wanted to take the time to just give you 3 totally underrated food travel guides. So this podcast is meant to be thrown on when you're commuting or cleaning or basically on the go. We know that sometimes sitting down to read blogs or websites, people just have trouble carving out the time to do that. So throw this one on, have a listen, and hopefully you get to pick up a couple tips here. So 3 totally underrated food travel guides. These are guides that we use particularly, I use all the time when I'm on the road. I'm in different cities a lot, traveling to find new products or just to find some great things to eat. And there's a couple websites I use, and I wanted to share them here. So number 1, Road Food. This is an amazing site that is solely dedicated to kind of almost like the diners, drive-ins, and dives of the internet. They will have spots in rural Pennsylvania. They'll have spots on the coast of Charleston. They'll have spots all over America, and it very much talks about maybe the best place to get pie in one state or the best place to get a pulled pork sandwich down in Texas. But they have this very effective map feature where you can easily see where all these gems are sort of located throughout a state. And almost every time I'm driving through an area of the states that I know nothing about, I'll bring up that Road Food map. And it's a classic example of once you find a good resource for something, in this case, somebody that really knows great food on the road, I just keep going back to it. There's no point in jumping on Yelp. There's no point in jumping on one of these review sites when there's a site like Road Food out there that time and time again, its batting average is so ridiculously high for me that I cannot recommend it enough. So it's a thankless job, whoever's behind Road Food and threw that up there, but they've really mapped out some of the best restaurants in America. 2, another one I love to use is Southern Foodways Alliance. This is a site that's actually more of an editorial site dedicated to preserving Southern cooking traditions. And anytime when you're in the South, if you just type a keyword into their search function, so if on the top part of their site, for example, if you're in Kentucky, if you throw in Kentucky in there, they have different editorial pieces on different food makers in that state. So an example being, I was recently down in North Carolina and I really wanted to get incredible North Carolina barbecue. So I typed in North Carolina barbecue, and sure enough, they had a barbecue roadmap. And the thing with Southern Foodways Alliance is that they will always seek out the makers and the food people who are sticking to the old school traditions. So these might not be the hottest new places, but they're way more interesting because a lot of the times they're the place that's been around for 50, 60, or 80, 100 years, or their 3rd or 4th generation barbecue restaurants. It could be somebody who's just doing a fried bologna sandwich and they're the last person in Mississippi doing a certain type of fried bologna sandwich. But there's always an incredible story behind it. And again, they've never sent me to a bad place. So using what is actually sort of an editorial site, but using their search function to suss out the best food in wherever area you are. And again, if you're in Charleston, try Charleston as a keyword. If you're going to the South and you really want to try amazing jambalaya, throw that in the search term. Try a couple different searches and you'll end up finding something near you because they've covered a lot of the South. You'll end up finding something near you, and it'll always be fantastic. So I highly recommend Southern Foodways Alliance. Number 3, and last but not least, the Coastal Living Annual's Best Seafood Dives list. So I've talked about this before. This is what I think to be one of the most underrated pieces of investigative journalism on the internet. Coastal Living puts together this list of dives, and much like the other two recommendations today, I've never missed on this thing. They have everything from the Lobster Shack up in Maine to the last place doing fried herring in North Carolina. They have the incredible all-you-can-eat blue crab shack in Maryland. And again, they seem to do an amazing job of sussing out not the new kind of hipster joint, but the joint that's been there year after year after year after year. The type of place that you go there and people are like, how did you find out about us? You know, because they went there, and oftentimes you start talking to people in the restaurant, they're like, oh, we've been going here. My grandmother used to take me to this spot. And so Coastal Living does an amazing job of sussing out seafood dives. And there is a difference between a seafood dive and a seafood restaurant. A seafood dive is usually no frills, paper plates. A lot of times it's fried seafood or simply done. And it is usually right from the docks, fishermen straight to the shack. And a lot of the times they're seasonal. So they're not even year-round restaurants. Like, you know, you take some of these lobster shacks up in Connecticut and Maine, they're just there for the summer. Or fried clams out in Rhode Island. You know, they're just there for the summer. And they always highlight one amazing seafood dive in each state. So you can actually, if you're in Alabama, like they'll have a little collection of 3 or 4 sometimes even shacks, seafood dives that are in Alabama. Or if you're in Alaska, you can look it up. It's really cool. They break it down by state. Highly recommend checking it out. And again, these are just knockout places that I've probably been to 25 on the list, and I've never had a bad meal. So those are 3 totally underrated food travel guides. I wanted to share those with you just to review. 1, road food, and we'll put the links to these in the show notes. 2, Southern Foodways Alliance, and 3, the Coastal Living Annual Best Seafood Dives list. So thanks for joining us on the Mantry podcast today. If you enjoyed this, share it. At least go to one restaurant based on one of these lists. Trust me, they're amazing resources. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck cooking.